Friday, May the 9th, further thought. The Scriptures make it clear that Christ is the only one worthy to secure our salvation. His life was the only sinless human life, the only example of a life that rendered perfect satisfaction to the glory of the Father. He is the spotless Lamb of God, and now he stands at the head of the human race as our eternal security. At the same time, he took our guilt on himself, satisfying the judgment that is God's response to wickedness. As John witnesses the incredible scene of heavenly beings gathered around God's throne, he is told to stop weeping because the Lion of the tribe of Judah has prevailed. Revelation 5, verse 5. And that verse says, "But one of the elders said to me, Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals." Think, too, just how bad sin is, and just how fallen the human race really is, that only the death of Jesus, God himself, would suffice to solve the problem of sin. No doubt, if there were some other way that God could have saved us, without violating the principles of his divine government, surely he would have done it. Quote, "The broken law of God demanded the life of the sinner. In all the universe there was but one who could, in behalf of man, satisfy its claims. Since the divine law is as sacred as God himself, only one equal with God could make atonement for its transgression. None but Christ could redeem fallen man from the curse of the law and bring him again into harmony with heaven. Christ would take upon himself the guilt and shame of sin so offensive to a holy God that it must separate the Father and his Son. Christ would reach to the depths of misery to rescue the ruined race." That's by Ellen G. White, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 63. Discussion questions. Question 1. John sees the Lamb enter the throne room looking as though he had been slain. Revelation 13, verse 8, informs us that Jesus has been slain since the foundation of the world. Revelation 13, verse 8 says, "All who dwell on the earth will worship him whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world." What can we learn about God through the fact that the plan of salvation was already in place before we needed it? Question 2. Many atheists believe that we are alone in a cold, uncaring universe. In contrast, the Bible talks not only about God, but about how he loved the world so much that he came down to it and even died for it. How differently should we view the world and our place in it, in contrast to those who don't believe in God at all? In other words, how should the reality of the cross impact all that we do? Question 3. Why was the life, death, and resurrection of Christ the only means by which the human race could be saved? Again, what does such a cost tell us about how bad sin must really be? We here at Christian Services for the Blind and Hearing Impaired always welcome your comments about the content and how we can improve it. Thanks for listening, and may God bless you in the coming week.
For further reading, The Passover in Patriarchs and Prophets, pages 273 to 279, and He That Hath Seen Me Hath Seen the Father, Signs of the Times, June 9, 1890, paragraphs 1 through 13.
Now it is time for Inside Story with Sibylla Harrold. Thank you, Sibylla.
A Cry for Help, Part 2 by Andrew McChesney. Diana's party lifestyle began taking a heavy toll on her by the end of the summer after her high school graduation. One day, alone in a park in Monte Vista, Colorado, Diana looked up into the leaves of the trees and saw sunlight gleaming through. At that moment, she heard a voice say, "If you don't leave here, you will die here." Diana knew that the voice was saying that her way of living would lead to an early death and that she needed to get away if she wanted to live. She spoke with her mother about the future, and her mother asked, "Have you ever thought about the Navy?" Diana was annoyed at what she thought was a silly question, but 3 months later she enlisted and training in Orlando, Florida. After that, she sailed the world. She saw many things that repulsed her. Every seaport had prostitution, gambling, and worse. In rapid succession, Diana met and married a sailor, was honourably discharged from the Navy, and gave birth to 3 sons. They moved to Monte Vista, Colorado, but Diana's husband wasn't happy with family life. Diana became depressed and began idolizing death. At first she wished to fall ill and die, and then she thought about taking her own life. In desperation she prayed, "God, I believe you are real, but I don't know where you are." Strangely, over the next week she had conversations with people from 4 different faith groups. First, 2 young missionaries came to her door. When she let them in, one missionary opened a book and read a text that said people with dark skin could not enter the highest heaven because they were cursed. Diana was offended. As a child, she had been the only white student in her class during a period of desegregation in Virginia. She knew God loved everyone and told the missionaries, "You have to leave." She wondered, why did they read that text to me? The next day, 3 women came to her house. During their visit, Diana asked them about the Sabbath. "We worship God every day," a woman said. Diana thought that made sense, and she agreed to see them again. Then a tiny old woman knocked on her door on a stormy Friday night. She was collecting funds for a disaster relief charity. Although the family had very little, Diana gave her the money that she was saving in a tip jar for her job at Pizza Hut. She never saw the woman again. That same weekend, Diana was invited by a friend to another church. She felt an evil presence upon entering, and she fled after the service. This mission story offers an inside look at how God miraculously worked in the life of Diana Fish, Development Director of the US-based Holbrook Seventh-day Adventist Indian School, which received the 13th Sabbath offering in 2021. Thank you for supporting the spread of the gospel with this quarter's 13th Sabbath offering on June 28. We'll read more about Diana next week in Part 3.
And remember, God is always faithful.